my name is Ashley Gotthard. I am married to Alan Gotthard, and we have 2 young kids. Emmy is 2, and Levi is almost a year now.
Ashley and I came home from church one evening, and everything was a normal evening. Our kids were fine. They both were happy, went to bed fine. And then Ashley and I were headed to bed around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we were right about to go to sleep when we heard a funny sound on the monitor from our son Levi's room, who was at the time he was 10 months old, I guess.
Something didn't sound right. So we went in and checked on him, and he was having a really hard time breathing. And that was pretty scary. We called the pediatrician to see, is there anything we should be doing, or is this serious?
So he was gasping for air, and we didn't know what to do, and we just started praying. We didn't know, we needed wisdom. We didn't know, do we go to the hospital? Do we call the doctor? Do we call an ambulance? What do we do? Is he actually not breathing, or does he just sound really congested? And so we kept listening to him for a couple more seconds, and he wasn't breathing, and we couldn't figure out why. So our pediatrician has like a 24-hour call service. So Ashley called in, and we heard the pediatrician. He came on the phone, and we said, can you please listen to our son? It doesn't sound like he's breathing. And he listened, and he just said, you need to get the phone down and go to the hospital immediately. We knew one of us needed to stay and one of us needed to go, but we also didn't know, this is a breathing problem, so do I drive him to the hospital, or do we call an ambulance? And we just started praying. We said, Lord, we need wisdom, because we don't want to be wrong and take him to the hospital and run out of time, but we also don't want to be dramatic and call an ambulance for no reason. And we just were praying, God, give us clarity. And we just both looked at each other and we said, we'd much rather be dramatic than wrong.
And so we prayed about it, decided to call the ambulance, and they get there, and they immediately confirmed our prayers, saying that this was just a really bad case of this inflammation, that he was having a hard time getting it in, that we made the right call to call them.
And I opened the door, and there's 2 mom EMTs that had showed up, and both of them immediately looked at Levi and looked at Ashley, and they went into action, and they were like, we got this. And one of them stayed with Ashley to get information, to love on her as a mom, and then one of them just scooped Levi up into her arms, and she immediately started assessing him.
And then Alan and Levi got in the ambulance and drove off. And that left me at home because our daughter was asleep. And that was really heart-wrenching, seeing my baby leave in an ambulance and I couldn't be with him. And I got on my knees in our living room and I just prayed, God, I know that you are good. I know he is in your hands. Help me to know that even more now. So we reached out asking for prayers from family and friends, and I had a sweet, dear friend of mine reach out and offer to come and sit at our house so that I could go to the hospital and be with Alan and Levi. And so that was a really sweet answer to prayer also too. So she got there, prayed with me, a sweet friend, and I got in the car and went to the hospital.
We didn't want to panic because we knew that God was in control, but we also knew that unless God would show himself so faithful and give us a sense of that faithfulness, that we were going to panic. It is a really scary prayer to say, God, I want to be okay if you take my son. And we just kept praying over and over that would be the case for us, that if God was going to take Levi that night, that we would be so confident that he was still faithful in our lives.
God's hand was in the midst of all the circumstances, seeing specific prayers answered almost immediately, and seeing him care for my son in ways that I didn't even know that he needed to be cared for was just really sweet and very special. But he was working in my heart, preparing me for this night, even weeks in advance. I had been praying the lyrics of the song, The Goodness of God, and just, celebrating, like, I love you, Lord. You are close like no other. I am always in your hands. I will sing of the goodness of God from the moment that I wake up until I go to bed. And that night, the lyrics to that song were my prayers. God, I trust you. I love you. You are close like no other. I am in your hands. My son and my family are in your hands, and he's never going to leave your hands. You are close like no other. And I will sing of your goodness, even now when I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so while I would have preferred my baby to never have to be rushed to the ER in an ambulance. It was really an opportunity that the Lord used to work in my heart in a really sweet way, and just to continue to draw me closer to Him and to remind me that He is still good in every and all circumstances.
He showed Himself so obvious to us in the midst of all of it that He gave us so much confidence to continue to hand over things in faith along the way.